They sitting is resumed. I wonder if honorable members' watches are synchronized to the right time. I believe that honorable members' watches seem not to be synchronized. I thought we were supposed to start back at 2:30, but it seems that 2:30 is 2:40. I was just wondering aloud and wondering if when some husbands go out and their spouses ask them to return on time, that when they do get in late, that they have a veritable excuse. I believe so because we seem to have a chronic problem with doing things on time. And I would suggest that honorary members, there's a old picture called "And Justice for All." I would suggest that you should really watch it and see the importance of time. When we last brought for lunch, we were debating the Appropriation Bill 2026. We shall return to that.
This Honourable House is now in standing Finance Committee. Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister, I wish to thank you and your team for presenting yourself to answer the questions. I do note that when you started, almost everybody had their plate up. Yours happens to be one of those ministries. Now, I've had a concern for some time that affordable housing no longer is affordable. And low-income housing no longer is constructed at the rate or at the cost that makes it affordable to persons of low income. So I want to know what is in place and what is the plan to actually construct genuine low-income housing. If a house costs $160,000, $170,000 to build, that's not low income. Being serious. And I know there's a danger. You don't want to produce less than quality just because persons can't afford it. But equally, it's a matter of managing expectations as well. So I want to know what is the plan for genuine low-income housing that takes it down into that $100,000 and below bracket that can be afforded by persons who are really barely managing.
Thank you for your question, Honourable Member. And what you're saying is our #1 mandate in this ministry is to provide affordable housing for Barbadians. And we have had many discussions within the ministry, many roundtable discussions on how do we treat to decreasing the costs. Now, this is the kind of thing that can be perceived as trial and error. And I can tell you, Honourable Member, that when we first started the East-West program, for instance, we have the right technology, which is using steel frame technology, which most of the world is going to construct affordable housing. We can use a modular approach to these types of systems, and we can build faster. But one large component in this design and build methodology is the foundations. And I can tell you, Honourable Member, that in the beginning, we were pricing the foundations too expensive. In essence, over-engineering the foundations. And the Honourable Member from Christchurch West can tell you that. Hence, we were paying too much money and driving up the costs. So what the ministry, through the NHC as well, has proceeded to do is to get down the costs of the foundations. And the Honourable Member for St. George South can tell you that as well, in his tenure, that was one of the things that we trying to get down so that we can decrease the costs. Another component is the infrastructure works, which can be quite pricey. Now, we've had conversations on how we are going to fund this, because that component can also increase the overall cost of the development. I had a conversation with the Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast on this in regards to Lower Burney and getting that project started. Now, when you talk about materials, I've had conversations with contractors, specifically in the St. George Brighton project, where they did say that lessons learned would include, for instance, instead of using certain types of tiles, that we would go more to the click system, and you can get those pretty inexpensive out of China. So we have to be cognizant across the board of all the materials that we use that can also bring down the cost. But as you said, quite rightfully so, we do not want to compromise the quality of the finished product. But I can guarantee you that we will be looking from infrastructure works to foundation to quality of materials, look at how we can benefit from economies of scale, and look at how we can use innovative building techniques as well to be able to offer products. Now, we have a pretty experienced planning department, and they will play an integral role, given that the NHC will no longer be building like what they did before. We can concentrate on those areas of planning and design, and also possibly facilitating those said materials that can bring down the overall costs. So that is job one for us, offering affordable housing. And you are quite correct that we must pay specific attention to this matter. Thank you.
So in line with that, and your ambitious target of 10,000 houses in the next 5 years, and I think PS Nikki Smith put that equation into perspective and said that's 2,000 a year. Now, I realize there's been a trend recently towards larger scale developments. So you're going for bigger contractors who can build more houses. But I think that focuses entirely on the production and not the overall ethos of NHC. In the Elsa housing, there's some contractors that I saw constructed some houses. There's a fella I'm thinking of right now who did a fantastic job on a house in Time Bottom. But he has been unable to get any further work from the NHC. So it is, if you are looking to build 10,000 houses, and as I said, I laud your admirable objective, right? I'm not saying give away contracts to everybody, But I believe that we now need to relook at some of these small contractors, and instead of giving a man one house, you can't give a small contractor one house, right? If you're giving him something, you probably need to give him 4 or 5 that he can mobilize the equipment to do 4 or 5 houses in a certain area, buy the materials in such quantities that it brings down the costs. I want to know what is the plan for incorporating small contractors. You're gonna have to prove them. So a man, quite frankly, can't get 5 houses from you unless y'all have gone and seen the houses that he's built. He must have a body of work. You can't gamble on a man who's never built a house, right? But you must be able to show his quality of work, that you can evaluate it, see that it's structurally sound, whatnot. But I believe that those persons need a chance, and I do not think you will get to the 10,000 houses in 5 years unless you have a system that incorporates both the large contractors and also the small contractors. And the small contractors getting work as well drives the economy in a way that only the large contractors will not. So what's the plan for that?
Honourable member, that is exactly the point, and I agree with you 100%. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1, and 10,000 houses over 5 years is 2,000 houses a year. And yes, we will take large chunks out of that target by partnering, say, with a developer that can deliver 500, another guy can deliver 300. But guess what? When we get to 1,500, we can look for the smaller contractors to give them some work. And I'm glad to hear that you have the contacts of somebody who did very good work, that we can do, say, 5 to 10 houses. And the thing about it is that they don't have the pockets to be able to fund 100 houses, but they can do 10. And then when they get the returns from that 10, they could do another 10. And then when you get the returns from that 10, you do another 10. But guess what, honourable member? That's the same thing that we did in the, what I call the whole restart. So we didn't bite off more than we can chew. And that is how we methodically was able to then fund ourselves, go again, fund ourselves. That way we can be fiscally responsible and also in a predictable way, keep building. So I agree with you 100%. We need to look for those partners. And I would like to hand off now to the GM to let us know how are we tracking contractors who are doing good work and getting them back into the loop.
That is the phase that the Chief Estate Officer, the maintenance section, and the special project sections would handle. So I would want to turn that over now to the Chief Estate Officer, Mr. William Clark.
Thank you very much, GM. That's an interesting question. Over the years, we've had direct contact with a number of gateway contractors, a number of contractors throughout the Hurricane Elsa project. I think there were some almost 300 contractors in total that we would have worked with. And the truth is, quite a number of them have done excellent work. And we have been keeping a database on the ones who would have come through well, the ones who have had some type of structure to their companies and who produce. And so we'll be able to put that list together, so you'll be able to see who are the contractors that we can continue with the project that was highlighted. And I think that's an interesting way of helping these ones to come to the table to bring together that number as well. Only moments ago, Mr. Lord was saying that we can utilize the houses that are the older houses that we plan to bring back on stream. And I think that those contractors, well, we may not utilize them in large projects, we can utilize them on the houses that we want to bring back in use.
So I'm not a contractor, and I didn't think about certain things. I figure if you build a house, you build 2 houses, build 3 houses, effectively the same. Until the man made the point to me that the boxing and the framework and the scaffolding. When you get your first house and you get that stuff and you finish your house, you still have the stuff. The second house is when you start to make back some of your money on the outlay of the infrastructure to build the first house. And then the third house, so the more you build is the more money you make because effectively the stuff is paid for itself. So I am gonna ask that you consider the small contractors again. I am not satisfied that enough work has actually been given to the small contractors because a lot of them complain. And the government invested a lot of money in the construction gateway and whatnot. And if we don't roll the dice on some of them, if we don't take a chance on some of them, then you will never get the next big contractor coming out. The last point that I wish to make is, as I started by saying, manage expectations. We do need an option that is actually low income. And if you look at how some people in developments do it, you get a structure and then you start to choose the finishes, right? So you can then determine the final cost. To me, there's nothing wrong with constructing a shell if the person needs a shell, right? If I only have $60,000 to play with, I can't expect to get a marble floor, right? I might be able to get a structure that allows me to move in and I can add to it when I'm available to. So we may need to relook the complete finishes which drive the cost up and then take it out to reach to the persons that we're actually trying most to help, and develop a system where we give you a basic and we give you options. You can take it as it is and then you can finish it yourself, but you're in and you got a roof over your head, or you can then choose the finishes you want to suit the budget that you have. So I think we need to be a little bit more dynamic and flexible in how we approach it so we can tailor the solutions to fit the persons that we're actually trying to host. Thank you, sir.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the Minister and your team. Minister, you've spoken about the importance of constructing climate resilient.
You may need Honourable Member to speak into the mic and speak a bit louder.
Okay, Mr. Minister, you've spoken about the importance of constructing resilient and climate-ready homes across Barbados, and you've created a nexus between the production of these homes and communities not being displaced. Now, I represent a constituency that has a place called Spa Hill and Chimborazo, and we have been displaced due to slippage in the constituency of St. Joseph. But I'm glad to hear that there's a plan for my constituents in that area, in those areas. And I heard the Deputy General Manager of NHC allude to the fact that there's 63 lots in a place which we Josephines affectionately call Ginger Works to be done. But this is not the first time that we've heard about Ginger Works. The reality is that there's an urgent demand for housing in St. Joseph, and we have many persons leaving St. Joseph because there's just no availability. There hasn't been any major construction, government funded construction housing since 2008. So I'm interested to hear what the timelines are for Ginger Works. My constituents have been asking all the time, so if we can get some specifics on Ginger Works, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And your predecessor spoke to me frequently about Ginger Works and wanting to get a housing solution for St. Joseph and, as you say, the Josephines. We even talked about ways in which we can get that project jump-started. Obviously, as I was said before, the infrastructure works for most of these developments is really the hold-up. And we were speaking about ways in which we can cleverly design the first phases so that that investment would not be as large. But let me invite Mr. Raymond Lord again to speak a little bit on the plans on Ginger Works.
Good afternoon again. Ginger Works, well, there are two projects we actually did in Ginger Works Branchbury. The first was the relocation project on the eastern side. That still has a couple lots that we developed with the RDC, now the RUDC. I think that still has about 4 or 5 lots, I'm not sure, I have to check, that are available for specifically set for relocations. I know one side of the subdivision is a bit steep, but we think it's still developable. On the western side, we'll let my colleague Marvin speak about the timelines. Their hope has for the western side, which is the branch by 63 units. So we've done 2 sets of work in there. Prior to that, we do recognize the issue of the relocations, and we did make some lands available at Torville. There are 4 lots, 8 lots in total, that we were able to make over time available at Torville. We are actively looking for lands, because when we move people in relocations, we don't want to move them too far out of their comfort zone. And we've started doing some desktop work to look for lands in St. Joseph. St. Joseph has a particular problem of being in the Scotland district. And that creates a particular type of dynamic that we have to work through. So we're still looking for lands in St. Joseph. I will let Mr. Williamson, Mr. Chair, bring up the final details on the Branchbury West project.
At Hope, we have on Ginger Works, Branchbury, we have 68 houses which will be for sale. The intention there is to use a timber type house, 2 and 3 bedrooms. Of the 68, it's approximately a 50-50 split between the 2 and 3 bedroom houses.
Chairman, I can't hear.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay, sorry. We've been out to tender for the infrastructure for the roads, and we will be hopefully commencing on site later on this year. I'd suggest probably around about August, September of this year, construction on the infrastructure.
From what I was able to gather, you said September this year?
This year, yeah.
And what type of houses will be constructed?
The intention there is we have a planning consent for the timber frame houses, the durability type houses.
Timber frame houses. And the number is 63?
68.
68, thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minister, first let me congratulate you for assuming what I call a very important office in this government, the Ministry of Housing. Let me congratulate the team. They've started some very good work in housing, and I know under your guidance, they will carry on the good work on behalf of the people. Just let me begin by saying a society reveals its moral character, not in rhetoric, but how it shelters its people. And that's fundamental. There are 2 questions I have for the team, but before, Mr. Minister, there is a person who's now a senator who sang a song, "Don't Forget Me," and that person ended up in the Senate. I want to say to you, Mr. Minister, don't forget me, or the people of St. George South. My question, though, relates to, and St. George North as well. My question relates to the Hurricane Elsa project. And while I will ask the question, I want to congratulate the team and the government because the mandate of rebuilding and repairing some 13 to 1,500 houses was indeed a remarkable achievement thus far. We are not finished as yet. So, having said that, my question relates to the Hurricane Elsa project. Having given the people of this country the assurance that we'll finish the houses, and I'm going to get into St. George in a way, because the people ask me to ask the questions. There have been houses in Carmichael, houses in Greens, that persons have been reaching out to NHC for comments and responses, and they have been far in coming. I get a lot of calls. Having been the minister, people still come to my office from St. Philip, St. Lucie, and I, as a true soldier for government, I respond appropriately. But I want to know, because leaving these houses without a roof, leaving these houses without windows, and the type of weather that we're seeing today, and I heard the GM, I think he mentioned that they're going for a supplementary. But you know, when we wait and we wait, we will end up in a situation, Mr. Minister, we have to spend twice as much money on the houses than what would have been if we execute in a shorter time frame. So on behalf of my people and the other people of this country, there are probably about 5% of the houses remaining now from Hurricane Elsa. And I think we need to complete the houses. And I want to know from you, through you, what are the plans? Waiting on a supplementary, we may wait until I don't know when. But we have to get these houses completed, or otherwise you're going to be spending money, spinning tot in mud, as we say. So that's my question to you, the Hurricane Elsa project. And I can go on and on about it, because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. That's not my aim here, because a lot of work has been done. But only as recent as last month, a young lady who's been reaching out to NHC for eons died from a heart attack and still has not moved into her house in Green 2nd Avenue. And these are some of the things that we have to face as a government. And me, I faced it when I went to the polls. And it was not kind. They were not kind to me with respect to housing. So I'm just asking you, what is the plan to complete these houses in the shortest time frame, sir?
Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. I want to thank you for your service. Not too long ago, you were in this hot seat as well. And you're correct, it's a very important ministry. And I am very privileged and honored to be able to be given this tremendous responsibility in empowering Barbadians in owning a house. And I'm also very proud to be a Barbadian and a citizen of a country that would start a program like the Hurricane Elsa Rebuild Program when there are lots of other countries that would not have done so. We know that there have been hurricanes in other places, Category 5 hurricanes that have devastated those countries. And we know that in those instances, if you weren't insured, they didn't have anything for you. So to live in a country that would execute a program like this for its citizens is tremendous. And to answer your question more specifically, we have, as you know, a small percentage left back, and we intend, or we have prepared a cabinet paper which has been sent to the Ministry of Finance to seek approval to unleash the remaining funds to finally complete the work of Hurricane Elsa. But I want to invite Mr. Clark to give a more detailed analysis on what the issues he has seen within this program with the remaining houses.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. first of all, I want to agree that the Hurricane Elsa program has been a mammoth task under the National Housing Corporation. We were asked to repair some 505 houses. We were asked to rebuild some 265 houses. What have we done so far? Throughout the process, we've completed 505 repairs throughout Barbados. Out of the 265 houses that we had to rebuild, we've already completed 247 of them. In the St. George area, we had 129 houses to repair. We've repaired 129 of those. There are one or two that some work still has to be done, minor works that have to be done on. In the St. Philip area, 125 houses were repaired. In Christchurch, 98 were repaired, 86 in St. Michael, and in total, 505 repair houses were repaired. We've done a considerable amount of rebuild work throughout Barbados. In St. George alone, there were 70 houses that were repaired. In St. Philip, there were 87 houses repaired, 62 in Christchurch. In St. Michael and St. James, etc., coming down in those smaller areas, we've done some 19 houses in total. So in total, 247 houses were completed. And that's a lot of work that had to be done. Now you asked about some of the challenges that we've been experiencing. First and foremost, funding to complete the other small percentage that has to be done is being put in place now. The Prime Minister, in a discussion we had, that estimate said she would deal with this on a separate matter. And recently we were told to prepare that document so that we can source the funds to carry out this work. And certainly once that is completed, we should see progress on those houses that the Minister, that you would have asked about and the former Minister would have spoken on with respect to houses that are incomplete, especially those with the roofs not on and windows and doors not in. But once that is completed, we can assure you that we will accelerate the work and we'll get that done. Then the only other challenges that we will face is probably, as the Minister earlier said, trying to secure these contractors who were in place before. So then we'll have to try and recoup those guys to get them back on the job to complete those. But all that is being taken care of. We're looking at these individuals, and we're hoping to be able to recoup them once the funding is put in place.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, and your officer. Let me say it through you, Mr. Minister, the officer who spoke has indeed been a thorough strength in this program. And I see his age somewhat like me. He has gotten grayer and grayer, but I know he has done exceptional work in that program, the Hurricane Elsa program, and I want to use the opportunity to congratulate him for his dedication and commitment to the task. Not only while I was there, but I know he's still carrying on that duty. But like I said, you know, while the grass growing, the horse starving, and that was my issue, not to criticize, but to ask that we hastily focus on getting these 5% of the houses finished. My next question relates to, it is related, sir. I see you have the mic. It is related, so.
Other members, do not preempt the chair.
I see you grab the mic.
I am listening keenly.
I see you grab the mic, so I said my next question is related, and it is related to housing with respect to the National Housing Corporation and the whole strategy surrounding. This morning I heard, because while coming to the chamber, I listened attentively with respect to, and this shift, Mr. Minister, is something that started on this, the member for Christchurch West, and I carried it on to shift the focus from NHC, from building to maintenance. And indeed, the shift is still going on. I want to know where we are in terms of the transition and what is the time frame, because we might come again next year. You may come again next year and say what I said last year, the estimates that we are shifting, and we keep shifting. So I need to know where we are with respect to the shift from building to maintenance with NHC.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The NHC is now mandated to enter into joint ventures, so to seek out contractors, developers that they can partner with. The Ministry of Housing will look for the land. DPS is engaged in that exercise with the legal department, with the chief legal officer in the Ministry of Housing, to be able to make the land available to the NHC to enter into joint ventures, and that is in play as a mandate. I will let the general manager speak on the maintenance component.
Well, in respect of the maintenance, and I believe you, MP, would be looking at the fact that there were supposed to be some changes as we move from building towards maintenance in respect of property management, etc. That facet continues. It is, I think the permanent secretary will eventually have to make a decision. What we will do, what we've done at National Housing is that we've provided information in respect of the reorganization of the National Housing Corporation, because we've been instructed on more than one occasion, only recently in the estimates conversation, that National Housing Corporation is to do maintenance, and maintenance not only of the estates, but maintenance of government buildings, etc., those which are 4 stories and less. So it is still on tour. As to the timeline, I would have to leave that with the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance and the PS to determine, because I believe that's a conversation between him and the other government officials.
I didn't get an answer to the question. I hear we'll leave that to the other government officials. I didn't get an answer to the timeline to the question. It was passed on to the other government official. Through you, Mr. Minister.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Minister. And the process for the NHC and the ministry to get more involved in maintenance is an ongoing process. I would hope that we complete what the reorganization of the NHC during the coming financial year, and by the second quarter, that we would be able to say we've gotten maintenance equipment, we've set up the structures necessary to be able to do maintenance to estates, do maintenance to uncomplicated government buildings, etc. by the end of the second quarter.
Thank you, Mr. PS. My final question, and I have a final question, sir, Mr. Chair.
Honourable member, if it is connected, you can ask. If it is not, we will move on.
It is
I
connected.
will hear you.
It
and
is
make the
connected
ruling.
because,
Honourable member, just ask, I will make the ruling whether it is connected or not. I'm listening.
sure, sir. We spent a lot of time this morning speaking on building these houses and maintaining these houses, divesting these houses. But there's an elephant in the room, and I know that department is a lovely department, well-staffed, sir. I know these staff members exceptionally well, good members, dedicated. But the whole matter of housing and transferring a title and putting people in houses, we can have all the grand plans like I had and the government with the policies, but if we don't get the conveyancing done, we are spinning top in mud. So where we are, Mr. Minister, the question in terms of reducing the time through which a conveyance can be done, and I go to 1, because I know Bullins was finished probably before September the 4th. That was my last day there. I think, Nikki. Sorry, P.S. Smith, but I'm not certain persons are in Bullens today. And I think there's no fault of the officers per se. The process is indeed a very long one to convey properties to someone. And I know we had several colloquium where we looked at the digitization of the process and reducing the time frame. So I just want to know where we are with that process. That's the bugbear for you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Yes, I know that you were very aware because there would have been some other properties that also were sitting for a little while that I came up on my watch. But what we are doing to speed up the process is throughout the ministry, we're starting with the land registry and the e-conveyancing, and you're very correct that the Prime Minister chaired over a land colloquium, which would have been in your tenure, where we were given certain directives to ensure that we can first stabilize and digitize our systems and prepare for e-conveyancing. So in addition to that, between the land registry and the land adjudication unit, those measures would have been taken, and you'll be very familiar with those as well. So I have taken the baton from you, sir, and I will proceed with haste to the next colloquium, which is planned at the end of this month. Now, I would like to invite the CLO, and then after that, and the registrar of titles to give their input into how we can speed up this process as directed.
Thank you, Minister. In relation to the transfer of conveyances for NHC's purposes, which is separate and distinct from what came out of the colloquium with the proposed method of doing e-conveyancing, which ideally would be the best way or the most efficient way to get title to persons. But until that is fully implemented, what we are doing is, in terms of having the conveyances settled very early, even prior to receiving the necessary certificate of title, the certificate of compliance, we send the documents to the attorneys at law for perusal, both from the purchasers end as well as the mortgagee, so everything can be settled. And once we have that, then we try to set timelines to have matters done. It doesn't always work because we have challenges from time to time. The person comply with timelines. But suffice it to say, specifically in relation to Bullens, our external counsel is dealing with that matter, but we have there are 28 lots that are there. I think all 28 have been allocated, and they are at various stages of completion. There is a certificate of compliance for the land, and I think the planner has indicated, chief planning officer has indicated that he is working on getting these certificates for the houses. But that notwithstanding, agreements have been sent out, draft conveyance has been sent out, so matters are being worked on while that is being done from the planning end. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kim Butcher, Registrar of Titles. In relation to the system at the registry. We have, in fact, as the minister said, started the stabilization efforts, and we are in the process of meeting with our consultant. We're going to start our stakeholder engagement soon over the next couple of months, over the next 4 months, as we search for a new system. In relation to the e-conveyancing efforts, coming on to the end of the process, there are 3 phases that we're looking to deal with, expediting the conveyances for the NHC units. As it relates to e-conveyancing, we are going to propose a way for a system to be built, hopefully to have some type of public-private partnership for transactions to take place on that platform. And essentially, we are going through the process. As I said, we're starting with stakeholder engagement, but that is as specifically as it deals with getting a system for land registry.
Thank you, team, and I wish you well with the e-conveyancing, because I know that is very critical to getting people in houses. And we truly living up to our moral responsibility of how we house people in this country. So thank you, through you, Mr. Minister, to you and the team, and keep pushing on. Brother.
Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Minister, thank you also for your enlightening opening on housing. Let me get straight to the heart of the matter. I am aware that land is being acquired at 40 acres, St. Thomas. I'm planning for the delivery of housing solutions have been promised, and there were 80 lots under that project. This project has had a long and varied past. Expectations have been excited indeed. My colleague next to me, in a different incarnation, may have been the minister when that land was acquired. And at the same time, anxieties have been heightened, particularly by the residents in the Allen View community. Now, St. Thomas is one of those parishes in Barbados that has not had a lot of housing development from the state. And for various reasons, it's mainly a rural agricultural parish. And finding land for housing may not necessarily be the most suitable parish because of that. Now, I want to ask, when can the project be started? Because there are a number of residents within the Allen View community who have been notified that they may or may not have to move because of their proximity to the dome of the Harrison Cave. And a lot of work has been done in relation to the geotechnical studies in the Allen View area and in the dome of the Harrison Cave. And those residents have for a long time not been allowed by the planning authorities to improve their homes, do further construction or development. Families with land have been prohibited or restricted from building on that land. And therefore, a lot of the housing stock in Allen View has not been improved because of those restrictions, notwithstanding the fact that people have access to land. And 40 acres has been developed as a site to relocate some of those residents. And also, indeed, to provide housing solutions for the public in general, but I would dare say the needs of the St. Thomas community in particular. So I am asking when can the project in 40 acres, what stage is it at? And when can it be started as a means to provide housing solutions to the people in the community? Thank you.
Honourable Member, your predecessor agitated on behalf of the residents of Island View, and I'm glad to hear that you have taken the baton and you are equally as passionate agitating on their behalf. And you are very correct in the parish of St. Thomas, given that it has a lot of agricultural land, that the needs of the country obviously must be balanced between housing and food production. With that said, I would like to invite Mr. Raymond Lord to give you an update on 40 acres.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and parliamentarians again. 40 acres has been on the drawing board since I came to National Housing in about 2012. It was held back because of the same challenge of the dome, that was especially for relocation. And then there were some other mitigating factors. It's actually developed in 3 phases. There's the first phase along the southern road that has a number of 500 lots that were available, and then there's the eastern road that has another set of lots that are available. We were instructed not to dispose of those lots until further directions were given. We have gone back 3 times and done an interior design for the remaining lots. That's about 45 lots, if I remember correctly, where we actually put in some quads and some townhouses and some single lots. When the project is going to start, that is, we will have to sit with our colleagues at Hope and see the framework for the finance. But we do have a design system in place, a planning concept for the infrastructure, road designs in place. So we have to look at the budget for it to see when it will start. But there are some lots that are immediately available for every location becomes a push, that we will get the special release that is required to utilize those lots.
Chair, I'm not sure I got an answer to my question about when can it start. But I would take it that I just want some indication as to when it could start. And Chair, I hope that is not my second question in relation to 40 acres. Because I don't think
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I have a follow-up question.
Is that your follow-up question?
In relation to the 40, yes. But I'm not sure I got a specific answer. If you can't give a specific answer, that is fine, but I just want to be able to say something to the people.
Mr. Chair, if I just a follow-up, you would realize that I would have mentioned a number of development sites that are ranked where we are going next. Hope will have mentioned that they're moving to Branchbury. We are working at Concordia. We are scheduled to go to Decorus next, and we are scheduled to go finish up at Coconut Hall and one other site. What we can do is look at our financial arrangements and see if it is possible to expedite that site. But we have done a ranking in terms of where we think we are able to go because of the availability of funds to do the infrastructure. Because what we are doing within the Ministry of Housing now is practically flipping the infrastructure funds from site to site. We complete a site, we sell off, we now internalize the cost, and we send that funds to another site. Hope is also doing that. National Housing, when we do our housing, we have to do that with them. So while that site is there, as we will look through, we'll take guidance from our minister, and we will try to see how best we can fit it into the rollout. Remember that the housing program covers 5 years. So while many of persons will wish to be in the first 2, 3, there are some sites that are scheduled, if I remember correctly, to be probably towards the 4th year. Because it's 20,000 houses over 5 years. So I'm pretty sure you were somewhere originally in the 3rd year to the 4th year in our initial thought process.
that would mean that a project that started in 2012, by your estimation, you should get around to 40 acres in about 2031.
The project started in 2012, and again, there are many issues coming out there because the land was specifically settled for the persons on the dome. Now, when that matter is settled, we are now able to utilize it. We are now able to utilize it. When I came to understanding that was to be for that purpose, for the issue of Allen View, and then there were some funds to come that were to be brought to do the infrastructure. That's the best answer I can give you at this point on that matter. But we did do it in two phases where there was a strip along one road, a 500 lot, and there was another 500 lot strip that we were able to get out. The interior, which was to have the heavy injection of funds out of the relocation, became another matter. So there's some sites that we will develop that would have come out of relocation funds. I don't think we were able to strategize to do that one then.
My understanding is that it was always supposed to be some lots being made available and also some housing solutions, because I am aware that the landowner of the majority of the land in that area has already started the process of developing the land in 40 acres. So that the immediate solution, as I am understanding it, has two components: a housing development part, but there's also a portion that was designed to provide lots for persons to build on. So that I'm not understanding why the two are now being coupled or, together.
The 500 lots were made available, and then there was a further directive to hold on those. Because of various things, I can't go into that here. There was a directive, and I follow directives very carefully. I'm a public officer. So those were held. Then the interior of the development, which would allow us to do the larger project for Allendale, that is linked to relocation funds, and that's a cross-ministry activity. And that the other part of the ministries that support that has to be settled. That is now apparently settled. So what we can do, as I said, as we are doing estimates, we can put a projections of when we will bring all these lands to bear. Let me say that one of the projections in the housing, 10,000 house project, 20,000 actually, has, for one company, approximately about 600 acres to develop. That is a large financial investment, and we have to manage our outflows of cash in order to bring it to bear. As I said earlier, we are trying to meet every parish, every constituency where we can, but we have to manage the monies carefully. So we will look at the project with our minister and we'll see how we can assist as best we can.
Honourable Member, I can assure you that 40 acres will be used has been earmarked for a joint venture with NHC. And we're going to start with about 32 houses for next year. So you can have a good starting point there and something that you can tell to your constituents, sir.
Yes. Chair, I have a follow-up. As I indicated, there's an existing community in 40 acres right now. And if you know the area well, you will realize that on that main artery going up Highway 2, it is a community that is kind of cut off from the rest of the parish. But in housing developments in rural areas, they add pressure to existing communities because normally there are no green spaces, there are no community facilities, there are no playing fields, there are no pastures or what's not for those communities. And right now, children play in the road, literally in the road. And it is safe because you come off Highway 2, go into the community, into 40 acres, you drive about 200-300 meters in. So it's safe right now for people, well, not there's not a high volume of traffic, but there is an absence of any community facilities, recreational facilities in that community. With the pending development to the northwestern part of the community, further up in 40 acres and going further north to the west in what we will call Hampon. As you know, the development in Countryside, Vaughtlow, Shop Hill, Grandview, that's all coming on. So if there is further housing, it's going to create added pressure for the people in the community. Now, the nearest facility is at Bridgefield, which is several miles away, or at Wexmore Hall. So how do you foresee this government adding all these potential housing between now and the next 3-4 financial years to a community that is already also currently under pressure, having no community-based facilities, no recreational facilities? I'm wondering whether or not there's any plans to develop the further development intended by government and the National Housing Corporation and the other private developers, and the developers who own land, or the landowners who own land who have already had permissions to build more housing, so you can create about another 200 housing solutions, private and government, over the next 5 years, but without any adequate consideration for the development of recreational facilities. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the community. It's going to make the roads unsafe now for the children to play in. And it will create some social tensions because now people don't have a place to go and to let off. And it is not alone. There are other areas in the parish that have no facilities at all. And so I'm asking now, what considerations are being given to the development of recreational facilities in a community like 40 acres that is literally cut off from the rest of the parish, and whether there's any thought for planning obligations to be used by the government to be imposed on the developers, not only the ones that work with government, but also those who are able to exploit the lands and develop the lands and in the immediate area to create those recreational facilities, given the recent changes that were ushered in the legislation, because those planning obligations could now create the recreational spaces, the green spaces, the social cohesive spaces within the parish that would not have to trouble you to go acquire more land or to ask the Minister of Finance to provide funding for the Honourable Member for St. John or to build out those community facilities. Because we can't just build houses and then have people living in a new housing development, and then the children, young people, there's nowhere to recreate, there's nowhere to line this, and so that is a big concern, because they're also going to have to deal with traffic and increased traffic in those spaces.
What is the question?
So the question is, what plans, whether there are any plans, Mr. Chairman. I started with the question first, and then give the explanation.
Honourable member, I listened very keenly to you. You were talking about 40 acres, and then you move into recreation. Now, I am trying to link the two.
No, Mr. Chairman,
to get your question.
The question is, given there's planning development going on in 40 acres, both by government and the private sector, and there's the absence of any recreational facility in 40 acres right now, what plans do we have to build out green spaces and recreational spaces and community centers for the people in 40 acres, given that there's no close proximity any current facilities there, and whether or not the use of planning permit and planning obligations might be a way in which we can achieve that if there's no current plans to build out those green spaces or recreational spaces.
And that is connected.
We're still in 40 acres, so it is, I wouldn't say it is not disconnected, but we haven't moved to 40 acres.
but we move into recreation.
Yeah, but we're talking about planning and housing, and you can't build a house if the chair rules, like chair rules, but you can't build a housing development in a community without those spaces for our people. And if you're increasing and doubling the amount of houses in the area, it's going to have an impact, a social impact. So I think I am on the ball, Chair.
Honourable Minister, answer.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And I can speak to the green spaces because any development that we go forward with, the planning and design will incorporate green spaces. I can tell you that. We're going to do that in Hinesbury. We're going to do that in 40 acres. We are going to do that in any development going forward. We will play our part with green spaces. I know that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central in his former capacity did an excellent job in greening the place. In regards to the community center, I will leave that to the best sports minister ever in the history of our country to deal with. But we can deal with the green spaces. I would like Raymond to chime in a little bit on this. He understands this very well, that any design going forward will incorporate this.
It's good afternoon again. We actually go a bit further in our master plan designs than green space. We actually have 3 subdivisions developed that actually have bike tracks slated to be in them. Bright Hall has one, Lower Burney has one, and we are working to develop one at Concordia on the eastern space. So we go a bit further out of the previous manifesto, which asks for hiking trails and walking tracks be part of subdivision with a healthy life. The Floralis Gardens Bullings development is supposed, if I can get my good PS friend to agree, to have what is called an adult play park, where you can have exercising going on. We hope you can get that in. The 40 acre spot area is slightly smaller, slightly more compact, and when the early designs has in a small green space, we might be able to translate that again to a physical activity space where people go and exercise. What we are trying to do with the green spaces is just not have a green space. Because in some cases with the new Planning Act, you have to transfer it to a management entity or we retain it. We are thinking in our minds that it must become a bit more useful and maybe active. So we'll be researching and looking at the costs through our colleagues at the NCC and things like that, whether or not we can put in exercise equipment and that kinds of things where people can come out on afternoons and be active. So while you have the beautiful green space, where it's have to cut it alone, we think we can go a bit beyond that and make them into active spaces. Because every time you just leave a green space and be transferred by persons owning it, we find that sometimes comes the area who's cleaning it, who's joining the community to do it. The new Plan Act takes care of that a bit, and the other Environmental Act. But every area that we do, depends on the size, if it's over 22 lots or 18 lots, depending on what land we have, we put in a small space where people can exercise. And hopefully we can partner, sir, with other ministries who have fundings available and willing to come on and partner with us and put in equipment and let the communities use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. In your answer to me about the green space in 40 acres and the general policy, I was just wondering if you could ask about green spaces in other places, Mr. Chairman.
Not at this time, Honourable Member. You have one question and you do your fault. Not at this time. You can come back, Honourable Member.
I will craft a better segue the next time.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you, Chair. It's just one question. Minister, I know that your officers would have reiterated on more than one occasion this morning and throughout the importance of having resilient housing. I know your ministry has sought to be involved in their project. Because resilient housing for me, based on disaster-prone areas, is not only about flooding and slippage, as we heard earlier from other members. To me, it is also the resilience in terms of wind gusts. And you alluded to Hurricane 5 wind speeds. We must now be able to build houses based on design to be able to resist these vagaries. What is your ministry doing in terms of, I know that you have a project and you can elucidate on it, with truss anchors and rafter connectors where members of the public can access these basic things to be able to help secure roofing when there is high wind. But I believe as your ministry is the fulcrum for housing development in this country, I think that you should be the leader as it relates to getting this information out to the public in terms of resilient housing. So it's not only for you to ensure that it's done within your housing stock, but also so that members of the public outside of your ministry can appreciate what needs to be done as it relates to resilient housing. So first you can extrapolate on your project, and then let us know the avenues that the general public can have in terms of the outreach, so that they can be informed about from foundational levels in terms of how to mitigate flooding, storm water, surges, all those things. How does your ministry intend to have this information being dispensed to the public? Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And those are excellent points. Resilience in our housing stock is obviously mission one, along with affordability. And any housing development that we erect will be designed to category 4 at least, whether it's the East-West program, the Juravilla program, any ventures that we enter into with Hope or the NHC, that is the minimum design that we will have for our housing. Now, you mentioned about education. I know that the Ministry of Home Affairs takes the lead on that, but what we can do in the ministry is that a lot of people don't know that the Barbados Building Code is the strictest building code in the region, and other countries have adopted elements of our building code as well. And this story obviously needs to be told, and I've had many conversations with the Honourable Prime Minister on this, that we need to somewhat enforce elements of it. It is actually so strict that there's developers that don't believe that they can build anything affordable under this building code, but we can certainly look at ways that we can pare it down, still to Cat 5 resilience, but such that we can educate the developers that we partner with, but then the wider Barbados, we can also seek a way to be able to disseminate these building codes so that we can ensure that obviously we will lead by example, but that other entities, private entities that are going to develop housing, that they are held to those standards of resilience as well.
And to follow up, there's a project. I know that you are a modest minister, but you have a project in your ministry that allows the public to have access to rafter connectors, truss anchors. And that project has been ongoing for quite some time so that they can secure their homes and their roofs. I want you to just let the public know about the project and how they can access these things, because I know that you're doing tremendous work as it relates to that.
Yes, you're very correct, Honourable Member. We call it Strap It, and we had distributed a number of those devices that they can secure the roofs. That program was, I think, done through the housing planning unit, I believe. P.S. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ethan.
This traffic project is funded, the monies are held by the Ministry of Housing, but the Ministry of Home Affairs through its DEM requests the equipment whenever they're required, since they do all of the outreach to get persons to put the straps onto their houses. The other project that the Honourable Member was mentioning had to do with something that we had looked at previously when we were going to design joints, different types of joints for roofs that would allow them to be more resilient, agree the angles. That was done between the Ministry of Transport and Works and the building unit. When the building unit was there, the parts are still held by the Building Standards Authority, or unit, so that if someone wants to make sure that their roof is going to be structurally sound, the Building Standards will assist them in getting the right connections so that it will be able to withstand a hurricane.
All right. Just to be absolutely sure, and because the public is in earshot of this discussion, you are saying that the truss anchors and rafter connectors, and those that project in particular is done through the outreach of the Ministry of Home Affairs, through the District Emergency Management Department, as we are saying, and then it comes to your ministry.
Well, strap it is done through the Ministry of Home Affairs, but that is when you're just putting on hurricane straps on the roof. We provide the funds, the Ministry of Home Affairs implements.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thanks.
Honourable Member for St. George North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the onset, I should like to say that my question relates generally to the length of time and the perceived urgency that matters before the national housing will take. I do recall Mr. Chair being in this honorable chamber on the last occasion that we were able to entertain members of the Ministry of Housing and Well, and raising some very important questions around the time frame that there was for the transfer of title to residents of the glebe, the transfer of title of residents in parish land, the transfer of title to those in the housing units in Flat Rock. And in terms of urgency, I won't have to touch on the whole issue of Elsa, because I believe that my colleague in St. George South spoke about it, although I thought that I was the only body in St. George South left with Elsa houses owed for completion, rather by repair or rebuild. But I wish that the minister, through you, Chair, to the minister, wish for the minister to be able to respond specifically to the time frame. And I do not want a response that is in the present continuous, that we are working or we are hoping or we are in the process of. I would wish for the ministry to respond specifically to the time frame that there is to complete the transfer of title to those residents in glebe land, many of whom have completed, paid in, can show receipts, but still can't get connections to utilities and so on because the transfer of title is not complete. To those in the parish lands that are awaiting relocation, and of course, to those who are in the housing units in Flat Rock, who have heard other areas identified for transfer of title to be complete, but who have not heard the Flat Rock units mentioned. So specifically those.
Thank you for your question, Honourable Member. I would like to invite Ms. Nicole Johnson to address the glebe and parish land issues. And then with the Flat Rock units, I would invite the CLO of NHC to address that issue.
Good afternoon. With respect to the glebe St. George, I will like to pass that question on to the legal officer, National Housing Corporation, because they work on the conveyancing, being the diocesan trustees, and for those tenants who would have been in the NHC as the attorney at law, so she will be able to explain to you what are the challenges that they were facing. In terms of parish lands, St. George, the lands were acquired and the process has to continue. I would then ask the PS thereafter to expand further on what needs to be actual transfer to the tenants.
Okay. In relation to the glebe, I had earlier mentioned about timelines and persons not keeping timelines. This is a clear example in this instance. NHC is not the vendor. We are the attorneys at law for the purchasers. So we rely on the attorneys for the vendor to give us the necessary documents in order to proceed and advance the matter. Unfortunately, in this instance, we have 61 matters and we are still awaiting 54. There are draft conveyances we are awaiting. There are 3 instances where some of the qualified tenants have died, and so they will need to get the necessary letters of administration or letters testamentary to be issued so we can convey to the estate once they would have submitted the necessary Form 1 notices. So this is one where we continue to follow up, but it is indeed a lot of delay in getting these matters completed. In relation to the issue of Flat Rock, further to discussions with the ministry, NHC had made certain recommendations to have additional estates added to the list of designated estates currently where we transfer titles. So that is in progress, and management and by extension the board will deal with that and follow up with the ministry in relation to those additional estates.
Yeah, parish lands in George, those lands have now been acquired. And we are, though you don't want to hear, we are in the process of having the individual lots confirmed because they were surveyed several years ago. People have changed their boundaries, houses have come in. So we have to confirm that the plans that we did in 2002 are still valid, or we will have to do some amendments to the plans, at which point we can send out offer letters to the persons. They're going to be able to purchase at, and I hope someone tells me that it is $250 per square foot, because it is not a plantation tenantry, so it's basically a large private tenantry, so they're going to purchase at $2.50 per square foot in those offer letters. And we should hopefully be able to complete before the end of 2026-27, before the end.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the minister and his team, I'm sure that one will reasonably appreciate why the responses, in my opinion, don't seem to answer the question. And if it is that the Ministry of Housing is unable to answer the question, I believe that then that should be communicated. When we received responses to the same question relating to parish land last year, I was told that it was to be completed by the end of that financial year. And now we're being thrown into the end of 2026, 2027. And what the answers did well on is to give content about the cost of the land and the process. But, Mr. Chair, like you and others in this honorable chamber, I have to face people. And recently, in a season where some refer to it as the silly season, and the pressure mounts when you have to face people and give them the same story over and over as it relates to the transfer of title and the fact that National Housing is not the vendor. I will have to rely on the expertise of others in this honorable chamber because I hold my lane. But in these matters, would it be customary or appropriate for the National Housing, the Ministry of Housing, to simply say we're waiting? Or is there a process where the legal work can be done for both sides by the National Housing or so? So I would wish to have clarity around whether this is the best that can be done as it relates to the transfer title at the glebe. And I must register that I am highly dissatisfied with the response as it relates to timeline for the parish land. And I do not believe that I heard the time frame for the units at Flat Rock. I heard a response, but I did not hear the question being responded to as it relates to time frame.
Honourable member, your concerns is noted, and I would invite you to speak to the minister on a one-on-one basis who should direct you. I don't think we can
Respectfully, Mr. Chair, the response is not for me. The response is for the people who are concerned. And while I can do that, I do not believe that it is fair for that pressure to be put on this honorable member where we have an entire team in the chamber that should be able to say, and as I noted before, if there is no better answer that can be given, say that there's no better answer that can be given so that the expectation is not there and the pressure is not on this honorable member to deliver something that she's unable to.
While I understand you clearly, honorable member, I can also advise you that you can set a meeting in the constituency with the same personnel to be able to deal with these questions frontally.
It was done already, sir.
Honorable member, I would like to invite the GM to give your response on Flat Rock.
In respect of Flat Rock, and so that the question is not asked again, in respect of Deanstown and St. James and Bushall and St. Michael, there is need for amendment to be done to the Act. A draft board paper, which I'm reading now, has been prepared for the next board meeting of the National Housing Corporation. This has come out of the fact that I've listened to the MPs, St. Andrew, St. George, and I think it is St. Michael's Central. No, I think it's Central. It should be Central. But I've listened to the advice of others. The fact that these are not included in Schedule 1 of the Act. None of the three are. In order to get this done, there must be an amendment to the Act, and a new schedule, a Part 2 schedule, has to be included now for the three of these to be accepted. Once that is done, I know that Bushall has been surveyed, but none of the other two has been surveyed as yet. So we will have to survey Flat Rock and Deanstown to bring them into the body. But once that is completed, the whole story of just the fact that you're one-time homeowner or first-time homeowner and so on will count. And once those persons fit the bill, they too will be added to the transfer program. This is going to the board within the month of March. First board meeting is in March.
And after that, it should go to the ministry for a cabinet paper to be done to come to cabinet. So I could say within the next quarter, we should be having some positive outlook on Flat Rock.
Thank you. I will not press further except to say that last time around, which is now a year ago, we received information that Flat Rock was going to be put on the schedule, but at least now I have a timeline that it will go to the board in March. And next time, should I have to ask the question again, I won't only be able to say that it's being put on the schedule, I will be able to say, but you said that it was going to be put on the schedule within weeks by the end of March. Hope the people of St. George North are following.
Honourable member for St. Michael East.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thoughts shift a lot in this debate when I hear people talking about building codes, and I'm talking about low-income people build shallow houses, and talking about NHC units for people who live on the social rims of society, and understand clearly that housing is a human right. And therefore the state has to take some responsibility as well. The state is producing houses that if you had to apply a building code to those houses, the state will be found guilty. They're building houses without back doors. They're building houses that are leaking. People have to run out in the middle of the night. People don't have any say in if they want the type of house that they're forced to live in, because they want somewhere to live. And I think that the philosophy that should guide you as the National Housing Corporation, more so in particular, is how do you treat to the needs of poor people? That is the basis of the foundation of the NHC, which was the Housing Authority originally, is to build houses for poor people. Poor people now forced to live in houses that got one door after all the experiences that we have had. I have units, and I'm speaking from a foundation exclusively of parochial matters within my constituency itself. I have housing in Barker's Road, which the people were forced to upset because they wanted a roof to live under. While living in the houses, brown water is coming off the top floor and running into the bottom floor, not once, not twice, far over far over what I would consider to be reasonable. I want to know and what is worrying me, these are not houses even constructed by us, models not even constructed by us, but we're forced to take them for whatever reason. I don't want to talk about just unfriendly relationships between sovereignties and things of that nature. I am talking about what people must endure if they want somewhere to live. I want to know what is the NHC doing about those houses. If the boss don't want to talk about it, I'm talking about it. What is the NHC doing about the houses in Barker's Road, 2nd Avenue, Haggett Hall, that there are multiple problems, both latent and patent defects in the construction of those houses? I can't talk about building codes because I sound like I'm talking about people who are alien forces. I talking about ordinary local people. They don't even know building code. You build the houses. You got to be able to tell these people why they have to accept houses like that. And I cannot hear about any urgency in relation to how you're going to rectify the problem. So that is a question. I don't know if you want me to put a question mark behind it too, sir, but that is the question that I would like to pose to the minister and the staff of the NHC.
Honourable member, thank you for that question, and we have spoken on this issue, both you and I, and you and your personal assistant, and I'm very aware of the issues that persist in Barker's Road. And my concern, obviously, is with structural integrity. So we have hired an engineering firm to assess that. In terms of the build quality, the NHC will address those issues. I know that they're vexing to you, and we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we can fix these issues for you. I would like to invite the GM to speak more specifically on the remedies.
Thank you, Minister. In respect of the houses at Barker's Road, they would have been handed over to the National Housing Corporation just around 2 to 3 years ago. And there have been constant problems. And the thought of how we are to deal with this, the engineering firm has come in because we've seen some strengths, we've seen some weaknesses, and we know that there are some issues that we will face. We've asked an engineering firm to look at from the ground sill right up to see what the issues are and what do they think is the fix to those issues. We're hoping to have an answer back from them soon, but there are quite a few across the country, and as they travel, they will come up with what they think would be the fix for these Chinese houses, because I believe you're speaking about the Chinese houses. So we are hoping that we'll have a fix for them soon. We've noticed the challenges with them, we've seen the challenges with them. So we're hoping soon that we can look to solve it would cost a few dollars more, but we will have to make it right so that the tenants can bring some comfort to their lives.
As I said, this is a right to housing, and I would expect when they say the right to housing, they're talking about houses or so-called houses which were constructed for a specific purpose. And if the purpose, nobody cannot witness the conditions that constitute what is the purpose, I believe you know that you have a problem. And I'm telling you that the ordinary people in the street understand that there's a problem. And if they tell you what the problem is, I don't even know why you have to wait on an expert to come in to tell you this is the problem. The problem is clear. No doors at the back. If anything, I'll tell you the story. A narrative probably will make you understand better. There's a lady of a certain size who got up one morning and tried to get out of the house to meet 8 o'clock. And the lock would not open. It is only an example, but it is happening to more than one person. And she had to stay inside the house until after 10 o'clock, when NHC sent somebody to the house to open it. The problem is sometimes is that too many people want to defend an institution and don't even understand that the institution is made up of the people who work within it, not the building itself. And when you're talking to people, people always trying to defend this abstraction called institution. The institution is the people that work within the building. And you need to respond swiftly. And I don't even want to discuss this thing about this open-ending approach to we will do it soon or we will do it a little later down. and these strange abstractions. Anyhow, I also want to tell you that if I have any say, I would not like to see one more model of that type built in St. Michael's East. And I am echoing the feelings of the people right across my constituency. You have a parcel of land adjacent to that, and I've received a promise now for 2 elections that you will be building on the other side. I don't know when is the date for the commencement or the construction on the other side, but please don't bring those things that you have there, that you're given the honor of calling them houses for low-income people. Don't bring them, please. That was just the follow-up questions there. There is...
Honourable member, you use your follow-up time. You have limited time.
Okay, well, allow me to use the limited time that is available now.
The time has expired.
There's okay, this is a short question.
Please.
There's 23, 24 houses in a place that the community call Hollywood. It's in Barker's Road as well. These units were built on private land by private landlord years ago. We've sent in 1 million applications under the Temporary Freehold Persons Act. And we've had meetings all in the middle of the street, to the west sometimes, and to the east, and in the middle of the street for the satisfaction of the people there. Everybody had great expectations that the ownership would have been transferred. The effort is made under the Temporary Freehold Persons Act. But I don't know what is happening, but there's some invisible obstacle that stands in the way of the transfer, the ownership of the land. Could you do your best to try to see if you can expedite the transfer? I don't even want to know if it's a ghost. I just want the transfer done. The people are vexed, angry with me because they don't see you. So I would like you to do your best for me to ease the burden of the member of St. Michael's East. You stopped me from giving a man a soul.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I give the assurance to you that we will investigate this situation. Let me see if I can invite Ms. Nicole Johnson to speak on it, if she has any information for you,
I just
Honourable
want to
Member.
say, I was in the land. I have made sure I did the required research about him even before he was born.
All right, we'll get back to you, Honourable Member, on that.
Honourable member for St. Michael Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Minister and your team, good afternoon to each of you. I know that I think this is your first time in the well of Parliament, I believe, and I hope that our colleagues have been kind to you. But I think you would appreciate that housing is one of those issues that becomes very emotive for a lot of people. You know, I have a saying that the people who draw a salary every month do not sometimes appreciate when people don't get paid, because a lot of times it's not hitting them directly. Equally, sometimes when you have climbed the ladder and you have a roof over your head, you may not appreciate fully or not have the tools to be able to certainly address the issues of housing that are facing certainly us as MPs within the country. I prefer this afternoon to not take the approach of simply being parochial to ask questions mainly about my constituency, but rather to reflect on the estimates, which is why we are really here, and to really question, based on everything you've said, Minister, and your team so far in this debate, whether in response to questions asked or whether in response to, in your overview of where the ministry seeks to go. But really, I would want to question whether these estimates truly reflect that the ministry has the necessary resources to be able to carry out the magnitude of the works that are required. And I start there because we can all 30 of us in this place can certainly ask from, St. Lucie to St. Philip questions regarding individual housing estates. We can ask you questions regarding the transfer of title. We can dig deep, and perhaps at times we may sound a little critical of perhaps works not moving fast enough. But I think that these estimates also speak to a bigger issue of whether, with the level of development that we've seen across the country, the constant piling up of additional work on the National Housing and the wider Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, whether these estimates truly reflect a ministry that has the adequate resources to be able to carry out the works that a 2026 Barbados is now requiring. We are mindful that, I have one of the largest housing estates. I say every time I speak in these debates and in every opportunity I have. So I am fully aware of the issues that plague the National Housing Corporation. All of you who sit in here in the ministry are well aware of my voice calling you. But I am concerned that if we relate to the housing estate situation, that perhaps there was a time when the works were being done internally, and then you started to look externally for contractors to be able to do those works. Do these estimates reflect that you, in those situations, have the adequate resources to oversee those independent contractors? Do these estimates also reflect that you have sufficient legal resources, either in-house or externally, to be able to provide you with the resources to respond to the conveyancing issues? I think it was the legal officer who spoke to a situation where in some cases there are issues regarding title. We know what the issues are, but perhaps what a legal department, whether in-house or externally, needs to now look at is, if it doesn't have enough resources in-house, are there other avenues for being able to solve some of the problems of ownership of houses? Because we've all for decades heard the concerns that people cannot get titles sorted out. So does that mean that we deprive them of the opportunity to have adequate housing, or to have houses rebuilt, repurposed, and being able to maybe have a fund where those monies are held while they get their act together? Does it mean that we don't look at perhaps having a situation where there is funding perhaps to allow title to be sorted out, so that you at the NHC certainly are in a position to be able to better get those houses back on the market? I think we can go around in circles in terms of what all the issues are, but do these estimates truly reflect for you in the Ministry of Housing the adequacy of human resources, of project managers, of surveying teams, in terms of all of the things that are necessary, the engineers to be able to do these surveys, the land surveyors to be able to look at these sites? Do you really adequately have the resources? And perhaps when you finish answering that question, I may not have to ask anymore.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It is a very, very good question. On the first day that I stepped foot into the ministry, I think the PS did tell me that the National Housing Corporation and the ministry has, like the rest of Barbados, an aging population. And there are a lot of individuals, key individuals, who will be going on retirement this year. In fact, I think the Honourable Gentleman to my left is also scheduled to go on retirement at the end. I'm hoping that we can bring him back. But yes, we do have a significant issue in terms of getting the required staffing levels. A lot of it is because we have a lot of retirements. It may be a good and bad problem for me in that I could get people some work, but at the same time, we are at risk at losing the institutional knowledge that is required for the complexities of this ministry. So you're very correct. And in addition to that, yes, we need more surveyors but that is mostly a money issue. I think one of the reasons why the Honorable Prime Minister directed us at the NHC to enter into more joint ventures is because of this issue where we have been inadequate in the past at delivering at pace. It's not that we can't deliver, but as you just so rightly said, there are a lot of issues in the estates. And we have been, as such, outsourcing a lot more in terms of the engineering that's required to do those transfers that you spoke about. In addition to that, we also outsource the legal services in order to do the conveyancing. So in some respects, it is a money issue. And in some respects, yes, it is a human resources issue, which we have to face. We have to face it head on. We have to bulk up to be able to be up to the task, to meet the challenges and the needs of the Barbadian public in order to even have a chance at trying to ease that backlog of 4,000 plus people. We really need to step up to the plate. So it is my cross to bear. And we've had many conversations, an honorable member, about this same issue. And obviously in your constituency, given that it's the largest housing estate in Barbados, I do understand that these issues do impact you greatly and other honorable members as well. So human resources, even the productivity within our workforce are issues that we have to address as well. Workplace wellness is also something that under my leadership, we're trying to, implement, because we know that when people are healthy and working healthy working conditions, they can be more productive. So we can increase productivity in our workforce so that we can get the most out of what we have while we address the other issues. In the meanwhile, we can do some outsourcing. We have some pretty lofty targets to make. I'm fully aware of this, but I can assure you that we'll give it our best shot, and we will look to see where in those instances we need to beef up, in those places where it will really matter, like the surveying, like the engineering, and these sorts of things. We also face the challenge of a lack of skills out there. And as such, obviously, we will have to look in other places as well too. So we have to look to our partners in Africa and in the CARICOM, so that where we have deficits in skills in certain areas, that we can beef up those shortages as well. So that in a nutshell is it. P.S. You have any further comments you'd like to add?
Thank you, Minister. These estimates basically represent what we have gotten in years gone by, and what we hope to add to that, even though it is not sufficient. For example, we've added new buildings to our insurance schedule. We've put on the new geriatric hospital, the new agricultural college that is in St. Lucie. All those have gone on. Therefore, our insurance is going up. We've lost officers, and the truth is we've lost officers not because they were tired of us, but they've gone to other ministries, and we haven't had replacements for the most part. So we get funds, we lose staff, there's rotation, maybe there's not enough training being done, that we getting enough people to keep the organization going. The one standout for us right now is that Lands Surveyors has been very good in what it does, and has been helping other ministries do their work, and they help us at the ministry to look good as well. And we can see their information, we can see land registry information. It is all there as we digitize, but we have to get to the point where we are fully digitized. We don't need as many humans, but we have all the resources that we need. Land registry is working on what the Prime Minister requests, that we speed up conveyancing, but there's a process to be gone through. They have to stabilize the existing system. And then the recommendation requires a lot of staff to bring all of that information into an electronic manner that we will then be able to work quickly and transfer lands quickly. So we ask for funds, we get what is available because the pie is only so big, and we therefore will do our best to produce for the people of Barbados with what we get, but we keep asking for more hands so that we get the work done.
Thank you, PS and Minister. I think your latter comment sums it up. We all know we get what we didn't ask for, and we are all asked to do with it the things that we can. And sometimes we therefore do not meet the targets for which we have been sent here to do. So I think all of us appreciate that those are some of the challenges of running a government. That said, though, when I think of, for instance, the Lower Burney project has been mentioned quite a bit by the officers, yourself, Minister. I believe when we were coming to office in 2018, this was a major project that was announced by the government at the time. And it came out of a solution to being able to solve densely populated communities, to be able to ease the pressure in communities where you have had a lot of criminal activity because the households are very dense and because there's not a lot of space within the community for even building out further. And that project came about as a result of a land swap. We were able to acquire the funding. Now, again, I say 2018, we are now in 2026. So the previous minister would have done some work to be able to advance the transfer, to be able to ensure that we were able to have the first phase, I believe, of the designs. I am aware as well that the social survey, while not a complete survey of the Golden Rock and the surrounding areas, was actually started. And I believe there's some more work still to be completed in some other areas to make sure that you understand fully who you are easing the density in the constituency for. And this is I'm speaking of the 20 of the 40 acres that was supposed to be built out for low-income housing. The difficulty comes that 7 years later, we are still waiting. We've heard the announcement, the first phase of designs are completed. But the residents of the constituency, and certainly those who stand to benefit from the other 20 acres, are still awaiting the clear plan as to when they can be occupants of their own home. And I say this against a background that you need to perhaps point within these estimates to where are the funds specifically to projects like Lower Burney's and others, where it is clear to the public that not only do you have these projects that are going to benefit a wider population, but that there are some timelines that need to be met. Because all of us as representatives are challenged to be able to say exactly when these projects are going to happen. We kind of hear it the same way that it is announced by the public. And I think that what all MPs are asking for in their questions is a clarity as to which projects are priority, which projects are going to carry certain resources to be able to bring them to completion. And I think for the ministry, it is important that while you don't have all the resources that you want, that clarity is brought to bear, certainly in these estimates, so that we all know what to expect in this next financial year. When I look at your major works and renovations subprogram 518, for instance. I see here maintenance of property, for instance, $4 million approved estimates, 1.5 in the revised estimates. But then for this year, you have a total budget allocated of 6.7 million. Now it says to me that while you are projecting a 6.7, again, the only way that you're going to be able to accomplish this 6.7 is if you have the project managers, if you have the human resources, whether in-house or out-house, to deliver on this 6.7 in terms of the works that you have to do. And if you look at every budget within these sub-programs, within these heads, the question still has to be asked, how do you deliver on your well program? How do you deliver on your sewage program? How do you deliver on your electrical upgrade program if it's the same people within the corporation and the wider ministry doing the same work? So I think you owe it to us to be able to drill down on the Lower Bernice project specifically, but also on all of the projects, a clearer understanding as to what resources are being allocated to each of these projects so that we have some timelines that we can both hold you to, but also that the public is clear what are their expectations. How much longer will they have to live in the deplorable conditions that they are now living in before they can see light at the end of the tunnel?
Thank you, Honourable Member. And I can assure you that Lower Bernie is of tantamount priority for the ministry. We've spoken on this many times. We have the designs, and I am hoping that we can actually break ground this year on Lower Bernie. It has to happen. In terms of the monies towards the sewerage program, the electrical program, and these things, we know that there are certain estates that are worse than others, so we can prioritize there as well. I know that we do have in these estimates the purchase of a brand new sewage truck, which will aid us in actually servicing these sewage systems in the estates a lot more efficiently. I want to let the GM, though, comment on the electrical upgrade program and the resources necessary as stated in these estimates. GM?
The electrical upgrade program, as you are aware, would have been started. Simple reason that the older estates, those units that are more than 30 years old would have been under the phase one electrical system, and they had to be upgraded to a single phase 3-wire system. That has been done, and I'll get you some information now in respect of your area. We've had some allocations on that project, and be completed. The areas that are completed are Haynesville, Torps Gardens, Bargatel, St. Stephen's, Lamins, Manors, and Rosemont. And in respect of the Pine at Goldie, there are 70 units in progress at this present time, and there are 64 which have been completed but are waiting for Barbados Light and Power Company Limited for transition. I would have had this discussion previously where I believe that there are some extensions on, but as I said earlier this morning, a decision has been made by the board in respect of the extensions, so we will move towards doing those extensions, but firstly, we will have to get the paper ready for cabinet, so to get approval as to how we will do the funding. But for sure, we are the holdup of having persons waiting because other persons are not have illegal extensions. That will not occur anymore. We have work ongoing at Goldie, at Eden Lodge, at Deacon's Farm, Silver Hill, and in the Pinelands cluster. There's an issue with some of the work to be done in Pinelands, in the fact that some of the contractors are unable to get into certain areas to work, but outside of that, the project is progressing smoothly at this time. There are 2,315 units have been completed to date. 170 are presently in progress, and I would have stated 64 are at Goldie, and 2,021 units have been transitioned by Barbados Light and Power, and 193 units remain to be transitioned by Barbados Light and Power at this time. As I said, the transitioning of these 193 mainly depend on the extensions to be done. In some cases, there may be 8 units and only 2 extensions, but we're going to move towards having them done so the other persons who have been loyal in their effort and have not done anything illegal, that they too will be able to have the use of the new phase of electricity, which is critical because of the new type of electrical equipment that there is at this present time.
And as it relates to the sewage as well?
In respect of the sewage, at this present time, National Housing Corporation, we are only doing emergencies. And so if there's sewage that is flowing anywhere or there's any difficulty in respect of persons who are suffering from some situation where sewage is in their backyard or running in somewhere, we are dealing with those. One of the problems with sewage, I think it was in Ainsville, is that there are some carbon fiber pipes all throughout the estates that would have been put in, some in the 60s and 70s, that are now breaking down. And that is causing a serious issue. Yes, it is causing a serious issue. So we are preparing a paper for the board to send up to the ministry in respect of the fact that we now have to purchase 6 and 8-inch pipes, because the carbon fiber pipes are not lasting anymore. And the thing about when they break down, there's the area where they're broken down, then the sewage then runs all over the area. And I know that some of the MPs in this area would have had experiences and would have called, and we've done our best to try to solve as many of them. We've done it, yes. So now is the time that we have to move away because as you always hear, sewage for national houses in perpetuity, because the sewage is communal. So you will have 4 units, but only one well, or one area that is for the wells. So therefore, that's 4 units going to that one well. When one problem occurs at one house, it usually backs up into the other houses. So we are working towards that. Another problem that we have with sewage is that there are illegal extensions. We are speaking about the extensions now. Some are illegal and are placed on the existing sewage pipes. In fact, I've been to 1 or 2 homes where the sewage line passes through the front house, and in some cases through the bedrooms. And I mean, it's almost impossible. We've had to find ways and means of trying our best to deal with those matters. And we have, in most cases, done it. We've had to even go through other persons' properties in order to solve the issue of person putting up extensions and covering the whole area with concrete, and we not being able to dig up that concrete in the front, some person's front house or kitchen. So we've had to find ways of getting around that. So we do have issues. Our intention is to continue the program in the next financial year. I think just $1.5 million provided for sewage. So basically, we will be continuing to look at those areas that are challenged, especially those areas that have the carbon fiber pipes, and those are the ones that will take priority in the next financial year.
Thank you, Director. I think you have reinforced the same point that I'm trying to make, that none of us would want to see sewage being only responded to in an emergency situation. And therefore, I believe that the housing estates require a different type of intervention, one that is a bit more clinical, one that requires a strategic approach where we take into account that while you are building out areas like a Lower Burney, and you have other projects under Hope and other areas available or becoming available, you need a strategy for dealing with the phasing out of the existing sewage pipes and the wells that are in those communities. And I feel like these estimates do not specifically reflect that urgency, because none of us like to wake up to calls that sewage is flowing through the streets of any community in this country, whether on the South Coast, where it was quickly corrected, or in communities where vulnerable people live. And I do believe that this has to stem from a philosophy of the ministry, where we take an approach that we need to stamp out these situations and be able to allow people to live in decent accommodation, both inside and outside in the units. My last question, though, relates to the Small Works Program, or rather I term it the Small Works Program, because while you are doing sewage and you're doing electrical upgrades. The reality is that many of these houses really are sometimes not fit for purpose. You have spalding, you have windows that are not properly sealed, you have doors that were built in the 1960s that have not been replaced. Many times when you seek the intervention of National Housing, the concerns that are raised relate to the fact that the money hasn't come up, you've done the procurement, but these are not weeks of waiting, these are months of waiting. And again, while we know we cannot do everything, I believe that we need to have a small works program where if you can find them within the NHC, you find them in terms of the workers, but perhaps you need to find small contractors that can actually carry out the works across the estates. What though is required and perhaps is not reflected in these estimates is the oversight that the ministry and certainly NHC needs to provide for small works contractors. There are several people who work within the NHC who have the skill set that you may actually find you get a better day's work out of them if they are working independently. And therefore, I think that going forward, the estimates or perhaps your strategy has to be one which takes a different approach. We are now executing under RUDC what we consider small works projects in various communities. Perhaps that model of finding small contractors to do small things needs to be deployed by the ministry and in turn the National Housing Corporation, so that we are not finding a situation where not only are you waiting on electrical upgrades to be done and you're waiting on the well that is leaking and emanating sewage to be addressed, but basic things that would make you comfortable in the house, that would stop water from coming in, that would allow the little old lady to be able to have a proper facility to step out of her house, that she's not stepping on a pavement that has not seen any paving from the time the house was constructed, or that we have not put railings to be able to stop people from falling, that these basic small things that will, in a sense, seek to address the day-to-day concerns that people have are properly being addressed. So my simple question to you, Minister, is do these estimates within the budget of NHC reflect an intention and an understanding of the philosophy that we do need to provide decent works while we do big works in your ministry, to be able to make sure that those small things are being done whether in-house or externally? And do you have the adequate capacity to be able to oversee either of those initiatives?
Thank you, Honourable Member, and I think the key word that you use is oversee. So the NHC has to invest in project management, and given the shift to maintenance, we invest in the project managers, and as you just quite rightly said, they will oversee the contractors for those small works programs, all those vexing issues that you just outlined. So that is the methodology that we and me and the GM have had numerous conversations that we need more project managers within the NHC to be able to oversee all of these small things that are vexing to people in the estates. And obviously then, as an MP of one of the largest estates, then, you know, you have to then, as the Honourable Member for St. Michael East said, they're seeing him, they're seeing you. So you will feel the brunt of this. GM, would you like to comment further?
Yes, we don't have the professional talent we have very limited talent at National Housing in respect of persons needed to manage that process. I've discussed it with the minister, and I'm very aware that the PS is aware of such. So we are looking as to how we can solve that problem and to extend, as the MP for St. George said earlier, extend the whole magnitude of the maintenance. And so that will include the additional cost for emoluments, because we do need additional staffing to complete the job properly. In respect of the private contractors, one of the issues that the private contractors even know with Hurricane Elsa is that once they've finished work, some of them, because they're small, cannot wait for excessive time to collect funding to pay their staff and so on. That's one of the problems and issues that we felt in under the Hurricane Elsa program. So yes, we do need additional finance. And if we bring in small contractors, we will certainly need additional finance. The work can be done. I'm certain that the team is, there's a team that we can start the work and so on. As I say, we do need professional staff. I know that the PS has promised me an architect and an engineer. So I'm looking forward for those. But we do need persons with the capacity to carry out many other functions that the National Housing Corporation, and as our mandate increase, we will necessarily need that quality of person or persons.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I beg to move that you do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honorable Leader, government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 5 o'clock.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 5 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 5 p.m.